Okay, before we start, yes, I know, I am Kirby fan. Forgotten Land is coming out. A lot of you are new and don't know that I love Fire Emblem. I get comments like this every now and then. Fire Emblem fans, I'm still looking out for you. If you want to see more videos going forward, please like the video, leave a comment, subscribe, ring the notification bell, all that good stuff. I was actually in preparation to get a much longer video ready, one that was really probably going to at least be an hour long, but I had to resort to something quick and easier when I lost over 30 pages of the script for that video. And no, that's not a joke, it actually happened. Although my videos are loaded with the things, and it's been a long enough time without one. So now I need a really good joke to start the video off right. Oh, I got one. Sylvain. So like I said, I love Fire Emblem and I really love Fire Emblem maps. I kinda sorta have a series where I look at Fire Emblem maps and review them. I am only at the second game and I don't update it very often, but I have a good idea on what makes a Fire Emblem map fun. Every game has their own idea of what makes a map enjoyable, and while it does vary from game to game, in a general sense, the most fun maps have great pacing, fun objectives, sorry, most defend maps, and have that perfect balance of difficulty. If it's too easy, your units just kinda trash the map and it doesn't leave much of an impression, but if it's too hard, you'll just throw your controller and talk about how much you hate Fire Emblem. Like a Fire Emblem fan, and who wants to be one of those? And that's very broad, I understand, but to keep the video moving, those are the basics of a fun map. Three Houses has a lot of unique mechanics that, in theory, change what makes a map fun, but the problem is that the maps themselves kinda stink for the most part. Look, I love Three Houses, mostly because of unit customization, but map design, especially before the second half, is not really its strong suit. You see it all the time. I hate that they reuse so many maps. I can literally hear it in the comments. Well, I mean, you can't hear comments, but, Sylvain? The maps in the second half still have the issue of only needing a couple of units to do one specific thing in order to win, but at least those have, oh, I don't know, you either have to think and plan really hard to skip them, or you actually need to engage with the map, as in, they have a design? I know, crazy. On that note, there is one chapter that many people seem to hate, and that is the first chapter of the second half of most of the rounds, Hunting by Daybreak. Well, on Maddening anyway. I've never played on normal outside of draft races, and even then, your lord just kinda somehow. But even on hard, this map is still very manageable. Enemies can be tricky, and you have to beat the boss twice, but I don't think there is anything too offensive here. On Maddening, though, yikes, I've heard the horror stories. Getting soft-locked after you spent a good 20 hours at the absolute minimum trudging through early game Maddening maps? No thank you. That said, well, you've seen the title of the video. I love this map. I love it a lot, actually. Maybe it's because I'm the kind who plans in advance for what I want to do in my playthroughs, or maybe it's just because I've only played this map on Maddening in Verdant Wind, where I have access to Claude. But while this is a brutally difficult map, I've never found it impossible. Proper planning has always ensured that, even if it takes a while, I can get through this with next to no frustration. After the initial onslaught, it's actually pretty easy to enemy phase 1 or 2 foes at a time, and then bonk the rest in a specific group on player phase. And look, I know, going blind into this chapter can be really rough. If you're playing Maddening as your first playthrough, I mean, there's your problem, the game literally tells you not to do that. But even going into Maddening after clearing normal or hard, it is super tough, I will admit, but it's also super doable. You just need to have a really solid understanding of what this game is all about. And I like that. I initially thought that you could only get through with the most efficient of builds, and all of your meme builds would just die come this chapter. But the more I learned about how to break 3 houses, the more I realized, no, you can make meme builds and still succeed, even in Hunting by Daybreak, and it's insanely satisfying. The satisfaction of clearing a map that starts off looking like this is enough for me, quite frankly. Speaking of how it looks, when this map starts, you're outnumbered 2 to 10 million, but as you slowly but surely pick the enemies apart and get more units, you slowly put yourself in an advantageous state, and oh, it feels so good. My method of doing this for the playthrough that I recorded footage for that video that I have to write all over again from the start, was by using a Faith Magic Avoid build on Byleth and simply dodge tanking, while Claude and occasionally others picked off the rest. I love this Byleth build, by the way, but I do want that video to come out at some point, so that's all I'll say about that. But I don't know, I don't want to be that vague at the very least for the beginning of the map. So let's dive into some detail and actually learn why I think this nightmare of a map is actually a lot of fun. My turn 1 didn't get recorded, but the idea here is simple enough. Byleth blocks enemies from reaching Claude, and Claude picks them off. If Byleth can deal good damage with a crit or something, that's a bonus, but unlike most logically sound plans, I'm not banking on a crit here. I know, sometimes I think I'm funny when I'm actually not too. In this run, my dancer was Ignatz. Again, it was a very fun build, but I'd like to save that topic for that later video, which meant that he could help me out when dealing with the early waves of enemies. I had a magic Lorenz build, with him holding the Thersis, so he could either chip away at enemies or knock them out in one, depending on if they were weakened. Having so much range helped keep him out of harm's way, and if he couldn't ever stay out of range, Claude joins the chapter with... am I allowed to say that this is the best gambit in the entire game? Offensively, anyway, like, it's no Stride or Dance of the Goddess and stuff like that. But what offensive gambit even comes close to this? You can even take it off of Claude and give it to someone else if you really want to. I never do that because I'm not a loser. I just play Fire Emblem. All jokes aside, this gambit being forced on Claude is so nice for this chapter. You only get 2 uses, but you need those 2 uses. I had a lot of freedom on when to use them, given that Claude can move after attacking, Lorenz has 5 range magic, Ignatz can dance, and Byleth never had to worry about enemy hit rates above 28. But if you have more enemy phase focused builds that require a lot of risky combat, this can help you out big time. No, and as for Hilda and Leonie, they were... I don't know, they were there? Hilda baited out some enemies so that Leonie could kill after, but they didn't do much else during this early part of the map. I'm sure they could have helped up top a lot if I played differently, or, you know, actually needed them, but 1 or 2 enemies they picked off were actual threats. Hilda taking 0 damage was especially funny. The idea of this guy wailing on her as she complains about having to work and taking 0 damage sounds like a funny art piece I'd see online or something. Fire Emblem artists, if you need an idea for something, there you go. Following the strategy that I set in place, distract enemies with a shiny fancy Byleth and pick them off with my other units, especially Claude, it took me about a half hour, but I got this early part of the map done. When I got far enough into the map and saw Raphael, Lysithea, and Marianne come out, I knew I had this chapter won, and it felt amazing. I didn't really need any RNG blessings here either, which was especially nice. Any damage done to Byleth I could heal off, and while I did get some crits, they didn't wind up actually changing anything. Saved me some weapon uses, I guess. In a game where you can repair weapons? I don't know. I wound up having a bit too much fun with the northern group, but I was even able to have some fun with a Marianne build that I tested out for this playthrough. I really want to talk about this one, so even though I'll be going over it again in a future video, it's just too funny for me not to talk about. Even if you only train Marianne in her stats that she has a boon in, she can certify for the Thief class and learn Steal. As a Pegasus Knight with Rally Speed, she was actually able to steal something from this enemy unit on maddening in the second half. This was as much of a win for me as clearing the map, if I'm being perfectly honest, and another great example of meme builds winning. You'll love to see it. Now, I can acknowledge that this map has its flaws. Namely, the horror stories of being soft-locked here, I have to assume that these are true. It's never happened to me, even when things have looked really tough, but I also know this game inside and out. At least for Verdant Wind. I used to think that suboptimal builds died here on Maddening, like I said before, and I'm sure that if you're going in hard on the memes, this can be a game over. And while I love the absurd difficulty of this map, and how my knowledge of the game feels like it's being put to great use, not everyone likes a challenge this crazy, where you don't get access to battle preps at the start. And that's a huge reason why this map is so hard. Also, while I didn't use all of them, and while this was a new game playthrough, not New Game Plus, I had 10 Divine Pulses to burn, which helped me out when I made a wrong move. And this took me over an hour to finish, and everyone makes mistakes, right? Right? Regardless, I can acknowledge the flaws of this map, but when I play it, I see the awful odds and know that I stand a chance if I play it calm, collective, and most importantly, smart, and abuse how insanely good Claude is. And because of that, I have a blast. Is it my favorite map in the game? Absolutely not. That honor goes to the final chapter of Verdant Wind, which I won't show footage for out of respect. But that's another video I'd love to make down the line. Maybe when we get closer to 3 Hopes? We'll see. This definitely falls somewhere in the top 5 favorite maps of the game for me. I get why so many people hate it, but even on my first time playing on Maddening, I cleared it on my first try. I was really surprised, but this has never been an obstacle for me. Maybe it'll be different when I don't have Claude carrying me on his back. Oh, that actually sounds really romantic. But until then, I'll keep on loving this one every time I play it. Fire Emblem fans, thank you again for your patience with these videos. Once Kirby hype dies down, I'll do my best to get another one out. See you later. Bye!